Hi, this is Denise Mathew, and today I'm going to do a sporadic video, and it's really related to what's going on right now. It seems like the whole of North America is live with the NBA playoffs, and it kind of makes sense because one of the teams that was always considered an underdog is actually in the finals this year. And admittedly, I've never been an active fan of basketball. It's just never been my thing. But the excitement of this year's playoff has really pulled me and many card-carrying people who don't care about the sport into the fray, because it's really hard not to be drawn in by the whole story. It's like David and Goliath, but this time it's the Golden State Warriors. And these guys are actually playing for a dynasty, which is a pretty big thing. But the Toronto Raptors are playing to have something that they've never had before, an actual championship. And it made me wonder, what exactly does it take to make an elite athlete? And in this case, an elite basketball player. Because one guy came onto the Toronto Raptors team, and ever since then, they've been winning and doing really well. So I was really kind of interested in his chart, so I pulled it up, and what I saw in his chart was something that I'd noticed in a lot of elite athletes. And almost every athlete that I've pulled out, I mean, of course, there's always going to be an outlier, has at least one of the four gates I'm going to talk about today, and usually they have at least two. And it's just one more way that we can relate human design to the real world. And so let's have a look and see what these basketball players all have in common. Before I do the human design, I just want to throw something out there astrology-wise, and it was kind of cool to see that the transits that the Toronto Raptors team are having right now. I wanted to look at the Golden State Warriors astrology as well, but I just couldn't do it because they didn't have a date for the year that they were actually formed, so it was impossible to make a chart. And I'm only going to talk about exactly one transit, and that one transit sort of says it all. So let's have a look at it. For anybody who doesn't know about an astrology transit, basically it's just when a planet moves in a certain way, so it kind of hits what's called a natal chart, or a chart of the birth of something. Usually it's a person, but this is a birth of a team. So the planet hits a specific part of the chart, and when it does, it can activate something in the chart. Now, what I'm talking about with this transit is Saturn, which is conjunct, which means it's right beside Uranus, or Uranus as some people like to say it. This transit only happens every 28 years for any chart, because it takes that long for the Saturn to go right around the whole circle of the chart. So it's kind of a rare transit, and Saturn's all about hard work, and Uranus is all about something unexpected. And so I've just written what it means here, so you can have a look at it. It does sum it up from what I can see. And what it says is that the Raptors are doing things that they've never done before, and it's only as a result of all the hard work that they're putting into every game they play. And I'm not saying Golden State is not putting hard work into it either, but I can't really say what their chart looks like. Does this mean that the Raptors will take the NBA championships? Who knows? Uranus is one of the types of planets that literally you can expect the unexpected. And how that plays out is anyone's guess. Like I said, some people will say that it's all because of one player, Kawhi Leonard. And though that may be true, no team is ever just one player. There's always got to be a star. But what is a star without the night sky? It's a bright light that no one can see because there's no contrast. And the contrast and supporting players in every team bring their own flavor. Now, how this connects to human design is quite fascinating. In fact, I've been researching connections for certain human design gates and professions for a while. Of course, every person comes with their own unique body graph, and the chart is made up of more than just one gate. But what I have seen consistently is that the gate 9 and also the gate 52 are almost always represented in the body graphs of these elite players. But what I also found out when I was looking at all these basketball players' charts was that they also had another two gates that seemed to be very prominent in their charts as well. And these were the 28 and 38. So to start to explore these gates and how they featured in some prominent athletes, we always have to start with an original great, Michael Jordan. I think there'd be very few people who don't know who Michael Jordan is, and I'm not really going to get into who he is, but he was one of the great basketball players, is one of the great basketball players because he's still alive. And I think the quote that I picked really does sum up the whole idea of the gate 52 and also the gate 9, because it's really talking about how many shots he's made in his career and how many times he's practiced and how many times he was outside in his own yard just shooting baskets. I mean, literally that's what he did because he just wanted to get it perfect. And it really showed and it really paid off. But what kind of mental frame do you need to have to be able to just keep shooting a basketball over and over and over again. And what you need is either the gate 9 or the gate 52, and even better, you'd have the whole channel, 952. The channel 952 is a channel of concentration. That's what it's called. Now, the interesting thing about the channel 952 is this. A lot of children who are diagnosed with ADHD or attention deficit disorder actually have this channel, or at least one of the gates. And my feeling, and this is just my feeling about attention deficit disorder, is this. It's less about attention deficit and more about hyper-focus. And when you're hyper-focused on one thing, it's to the exclusion of all else. And if that means you're sitting in a classroom and your teacher's talking and everything is about what's going on the board or what's going on at the front of the classroom, but yet you're looking outside at some kids playing or you're hyper focusing on something, then you're not really paying attention. So it's hyper focus, and where it gets into trouble is when they're hyper focusing on things that are not necessarily important to what they're supposed to learn. So that's just an aside. Ultimately, what we're talking about is a 952 is all about concentration. And what does a basketball player need? Really, any elite athlete, what do they need? They need concentration, and they need focus, and they need the stillness, which the 52 brings, to refocus their attention on the thing that they're actually focusing on. So the 9 is all about small details. So always seeing all the small details in everything they do. The 52 is all about stillness. So you have this connection between the two, and suddenly you have this ability to hyper focus on something, but also to have the stillness with that hyper focus to be able to direct it in the right place and actually hold on to that thing that you're trying to work with. And in this case, it would be working with how many shots they're doing and how close they are to the net and how close they need to be to get the right shots and how they can maneuver around people. It's all in the small details, and really anybody who carries this gate, now in this case, Michael Jordan carries the gate 9. That's all the small details. And in human design, it's all about electromagnetics, and electromagnetics means that whenever you have a hanging gate or just half a channel, you're always going to be attracting people who give you that other half of the channel. Or in fact, you'll be attracted to people with the other half of your channel. And in just a minute, I'm going to show you how this can actually happen in the real world. And here we have Scottie Pippen's chart, and he was a player who played a lot with Jordan on the Chicago Bulls. And it's easy to see that Scottie Pippen has a complete channel. So not only did he bring the 52 to Michael Jordan to complete his channel, he already had the complete channel. So the two of them both had the exact same channel working together. And you could say that's a coincidence, but let's keep going and see what else we can see. So this is Kawhi Leonard, and Kawhi Leonard is the star of now. He's the star of the Raptors, and he's taking the Raptors to a place that they've never been before. Of course, other people are working really hard, but Kawhi Leonard seems to be leading the pack. And it's kind of interesting because Kawhi Leonard shares something with both Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. And that's the gate 52. And if there's anything we can say about Kawhi Leonard, is nobody really knows him. He's kind of like an enigma. He's on the court and he's there to play ball. He's not there to listen to people trash talk him. He just kind of ignores it. He's there to play ball, and he's so focused. It's kind of amazing to watch. And it makes a lot of sense because the 52 is way up in his sun. And that's a very important part in a human design chart. And what that means is that that's what his whole chart goes through. It's all through the stillness. But where does the 9 energy come from so he can get the complete channel? And no, I'm not making this stuff up. It really does line up this easily. And here we have Kyle Lowry, the heart and soul of the Raptors, according to anybody who's been following the Toronto Raptors for years. And what does Kyle Lowry have? Well, he's got the whole channel, the 952. So when he plays, he's playing and he's bringing exactly the same thing that Scottie Pippen brought to Michael Jordan. He's bringing the whole 952, the whole channel of concentration and stillness. And the dynamic is similar. So just like I said, there's always a star, but there's always supporting players too. And this is where we see Kyle Lowry is supporting Kawhi just as much as Kawhi is being the star. Or at least he is in a human design way. So here we have Kevin Durant, and he's on the other side. He's on the Golden State Warriors side. And what does he have in his chart? So Kevin Durant has the gate 52 in his sun, and he's a star as well. And so it makes you wonder if being in the sun is the ones that make the stars, and then having it in a different place are the people who are the supporting players. And who supports him? Well, I'm sure there's other people, but one for sure I can pull out. And here we have Kevin Looney, and he has exactly the opposite gate, the 9. And so between the two of them, they have the 952, the channel of concentration. And I said there was outliers, and here's one of them right here. But he's an outlier, but there's some kind of interesting things about him. So he doesn't necessarily have the 9 or the 52 in his body graph, but there's a different dynamic that I haven't talked about, and that's all about conditioning. And what conditioning is, it's all about growing up in the energy of a gate. And even if you don't have it, growing up in the energy can make you develop it. Now, some people in human design will call this the not self, but in a way, there are parts of us that we kind of inherit from our parents or our siblings or whoever we're living with for most of our lives. And it can make us be something that we may not have necessarily been without this person in our life. And of course, that can be positive or negative. And in Steph Curry's case, I think it was kind of a positive connection. So let's have a look at his chart and see what he has that's really different. So we see in Steph Curry's chart that he doesn't have the 9 and he doesn't have the 52. But he does have another gate that I talked about before that shows up in a lot of elite basketball players' charts, and that's the gate 38. So it's either the gate 38 or even the gate 28. It can be the whole channel as well. And the gate 38 is all about the fighting spirit and fighting the good fight and fighting through anything, fighting through adversity, fighting through losing a game, fighting through your not wanting to actually practice anymore. But he also had some influence from somebody who was really important to him with his basketball and his career. And anybody who knows his history knows all about his father, Del Curry. Before there was a Steph Curry, there was a Del Curry, his dad. He played on the Charlotte Hornets and he was an NBA player too. So if you look at Del Curry's chart, now he would have been the person who was training Steph and also his brother Seth. And what you see here is that he's got the gate 52. And Del Curry has it in his sun. So it's a pretty powerful part of his chart. So we know that the 52 is all about holding on to an idea and the stillness. So potentially, Steph Curry learned that stillness from his father. And I'm sure he learned a lot of other skills because he was an NBA player and he obviously wanted to teach his son. So it definitely was an advantage. But what's kind of interesting, and again, this is all just stuff that happens in a very synchronistic way, we'll have a look at somebody else that plays a big part in Steph Curry's life, and someone who's been in his life for a very long time. And that's his wife, Ayesha Curry. And if you look and see, she's got the 952, the whole channel. So definitely she has been helpful in Steph Curry's life if you're going to look at the whole 952 channel of concentration. And the one thing he is mostly known for is his consistency. And she also has a 52 high up in her chart, up in her unconscious earth. And another thing in human design is that we're attracted to familiarity. So the 952, well, for sure the 52, would have probably felt like in a familiar energy. Of course, there's always going to be other parts of the body graph that connect with each other. But for our purposes of what we're talking about, this is a connection that Steph Curry makes. So he has a lot of this 952 energy, even if he doesn't have it himself. And isn't it interesting how Ayesha Curry actually was born in Toronto, Ontario? We can't just look at two teams. We have to look at some more star players, players from now and players from the past. So let's have a look at them. Let's start with LeBron James. And we can see that LeBron James has a 952, or the whole channel. And in the beginning, I said I was going to talk about the other two channels, the 38 and the 28. And I just mentioned it in Steph Curry's chart. And Kawhi Leonard also has the gate 38, and Kyle Lowry has a gate 28. So they both have something as well as 9 or the 52. And now that we've already identified it, let's see if we can see that as well as the 952 in the charts of some of the great players of basketball. Here we have Kyrie Irving, 52 in his unconscious earth, and also the 38, the gate of the fighter, and also the gate of stillness. Then this is an oldie, Magic Johnson. He has a gait of struggle, the gait 28. The other thing about the gait 28 is anybody who tells somebody they can't do something, they're 100% going to show them that they can. And he also has the gait 52, the gait of stillness. Steve Nash doesn't have the 28 or the 38, but he definitely has the 952, the whole channel of concentration. And here we have Kobe Bryant. Now his gate 52 is in a different place. It is in his Jupiter. So his reward, because Jupiter is considered the reward we get when we do the hard work, his reward is the stillness that comes from the gate 52. Going way back in time, we have Larry Bird, who has a gate 9. And I'm sure if I did enough digging, there'd be some matching gate 52 on some of the team players that he played with back when he was playing with the Celtics. I could go on giving more and more examples, but I think everybody gets a picture. You may have noticed that I like the word synchronicity, and I don't really think that there's another way to describe it because the synchronicity of all these charts and all these players really lines up. And how it all shakes out in the end, we have no idea. But all I can say is go Raptors. I can't help myself. I'm Canadian, and I got to root for my team because it's the first time we've ever had a Canadian team in the finals. And like I always say, there's so much in the body graph that can really help us learn who we are. And just because you have the 952 or the 2838 in your chart doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be an NBA player or an elite athlete. But it also means you can't rule out anything. Life happens, and sometimes our wildest dreams actually come true. And seeing how the NBA finals have unfolded proves just that. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.